A star sits on Johnny Carson's couch. The lights are hot. Millions are watching. They talk about their wife, their new movie. Johnny smiles, but he knows a secret. He knows the entire story is a lie. For decades, Carson was the one man who couldn't be fooled. He saw the panic behind their eyes. Now, the 9 most shocking deceptions he witnessed, from faked marriages to hidden identities, are finally coming to light. The men who fooled America. What many overlooked was that Rock Hudson was the ultimate masculine fantasy for millions of women in the 1950s and 60s. He was tall, handsome, and had an easy charm. He became one of Hollywood's most bankable stars, especially with his comedies alongside Doris Day. These films cemented his image as the perfect hetero man. The irony, you see, was extraordinary. A former Tonight Show writer recalled Carson's private thoughts. Here was Johnny, night after night, interviewing the one-man women across America dreamed about, all while knowing Hudson's entire public persona was a fiction. It was all designed to hide his true identity. Hudson appeared on The Tonight Show multiple times, charming audiences. But according to those close to Carson, these appearances created intense anxiety behind the scenes. Carson knew Hudson's secret. It was an open secret in Hollywood. But Johnny also understood the devastating consequences exposure would have. To put it mildly, every interview was a delicate dance around the truth. The pressure on Hudson was intense. His entire career was built on his appeal to female audiences. This wasn't just about privacy. The thing nobody tells you is that Hudson's powerful agent, Henry Wilson, had arranged his entire life. This included a lavender marriage to Wilson's own secretary, Phyllis Gates. The stakes could not have been higher. That marriage lasted just 3 years, but it did its job. It quieted the rumors. Carson reportedly found these studio-arranged marriages deeply disturbing. A friend of the host said Johnny called it institutionalized lying. He wasn't judgmental about anyone's private life, but he was troubled by the elaborate machine designed to deceive the public. The tragic end to Hudson's double life came in 1985. He became one of the first major celebrities to pass away from complications of a devastating illness. His passing forced a public reckoning with the life he had been forced to hide. Carson was deeply affected. He felt Hudson had been trapped in a system that denied him the dignity of living authentically. But Hudson wasn't the only heartthrob with a secret. Cary Grant defined sophisticated masculinity. His impeccable style and romantic roles created an image of the perfect ladies' man. Carson had enormous respect for Grant, but he found the disconnect between Grant's public image and private life to be massive. Here was the man who defined style, living a completely different reality behind closed doors. What fascinated Carson was Grant's long-term living arrangement with fellow actor Randolph Scott. For over a decade, the two shared a beach house in Santa Monica. Hollywood insiders had a nickname for it, Bachelor Hall. It was a domestic partnership hidden in plain sight. Carson found it surreal to discuss Grant's 5 marriages, knowing that the most significant relationship in his life was with another man. What's truly wild is how visible it was. The two posed for domestic photos together that were published in fan magazines. They were shown exercising, preparing meals, and relaxing at home. The images clearly suggested a couple, not just bachelor buddies. Grant maintained his public image through those 5 marriages. Historians now see these as classic examples of arrangements designed to provide cover. Carson had tremendous empathy for the psychological toll this took. He understood that Grant had developed an entire persona. Cary Grant was a creation that allowed the man-born Archibald Leach to navigate a world that wouldn't accept his authentic self. This list of leading men continues with Tyrone Power. His striking good looks made him one of Hollywood's most valuable assets. He was the star of The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand. Carson never interviewed Power, who passed away in 1958. But he heard the stories from Hollywood veterans. He learned of a star who lived a classic double life. Carson was struck by how Power, whose image was built entirely on his appeal to women, maintained a carefully compartmentalized existence. He had secret relationships with men, while studio publicists arranged dates with actresses. His marriages, like the one to French actress Annabella, provided the necessary cover. What fascinated Johnny was how complete the separation was. By day, he was the ultimate heartthrob. By night, he was someone else entirely. But these heartthrobs weren't the only ones. The era's biggest rebels were also hiding secrets. Hollywood's wildest double lives. Marlon Brando changed screen acting forever. His raw performance in A Streetcar Named Desire established him as a new kind of star. But what many overlooked was the disconnect between Brando's reputation for brutal authenticity on screen and the careful management of his personal life. Carson interviewed Brando several times and found him challenging. Here was an actor celebrated for bringing truth to his performances. Yet he was engaged in significant concealment about his private life. Brando cultivated an image as a ladies' man with publicized affairs and multiple marriages. Yet Carson reportedly knew, as did many in Hollywood, that Brando's private life was far more complex and fluid. A writer for the show said Johnny would comment on the irony. Brando was celebrated for stripping away artifice from performance. Yet in his personal life, he maintained fictions about who he really was. In his later years, Brando became more open, acknowledging he'd had relationships with men. But during the height of his fame, this was carefully obscured. Carson found it fascinating that the two actors who redefined American masculinity on screen, Brando and James Dean, were both allegedly involved in relationships that would have shocked their fans. This brings us to James Dean. Dean appeared in just 3 major films before his life was cut short at age 24. He became the ultimate cultural icon of troubled youth. Carson, of course, never interviewed Dean, but he heard countless stories from Hollywood insiders. And what he heard troubled him deeply. The thing nobody tells you are the persistent allegations that Dean engaged in relationships with powerful men specifically to advance his career. These rumors suggested Dean was pragmatic, willing to use intimacy as a means to get ahead in the brutal competition for leading roles. This included a rumored relationship with the influential director Rogers Brackett, who helped launch his career. Johnny would discuss how the public image of Dean as the ultimate rebel, authentic and uncompromising, contrasted with these accounts. He saw it as a dark example of how the Hollywood system could corrupt even the figures who symbolized rebellion. What's strange, as Carson noted, is that Dean's early passing protected his image. It froze him in time, and the rumors just became part of his tragic mystique. But not every star hid. Some, like Marlene Dietrich, broke the rules right in front of everyone. Dietrich brought a European sophistication and intimate mystery to Hollywood. Carson interviewed her multiple times and had a genuine admiration for her. He found it remarkable that she had managed to be relatively open about her fluid private life at a time when such honesty would have destroyed an American star. Unlike her contemporaries, Dietrich made little effort to hide her bi-gender preference from insiders. While she was married, she had well-known affairs with both men and women. What impressed Johnny was her refusal to be shamed. She developed a persona where her European background created a space for her to live more authentically. Her style, wearing men's suits, her deep voice, her assertive personality, all incorporated androgyny into her star image. Carson saw Dietrich as someone who had figured out how to hide in plain sight. She didn't deny her nature, she stylized it. But some deceptions were so total, they required faking an entire life. Faking it for decades. Raymond Burr became one of television's most beloved figures. He was the brilliant defense attorney Perry Mason and the detective Ironside. His commanding voice made him a staple in millions of homes for decades. Carson interviewed Burr multiple times. What he found remarkable was the elaborate fictional biography Burr had constructed to hide his true identity. He had an entire fabricated life story that Johnny had to pretend to believe on air. The extent of Burr's deception is, to put it mildly, staggering. The actor claimed to have been married 3 times. He invented a first wife and a son, both of whom he claimed were lost in a plane crash during World War II. He spoke of military service that never happened and battle wounds he never received. None of it was true. A producer said Johnny described it as interviewing a character rather than a person. He found it profoundly sad that Burr felt compelled to invent not just a same-gender identity, but an entire tragic backstory to deflect questions. In reality, Burr lived for the last 35 years of his life with his partner, Robert Benavides, whom he met on the set of Perry Mason. They ran a successful business together, living as partners while publicly claiming they were just business associates. The irony that Burr, who played the ultimate truth-seeker in Perry Mason, had to live a life built on such a massive lie, wasn't lost on Carson. But even that deception might be topped by the double fake of Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester. Laughton was a character actor known for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. His wife, Elsa Lanchester, was famous as the Bride of Frankenstein. Their marriage lasted from 1929 until Laughton's passing in 1962. It looked like one of Hollywood's most enduring unions. Carson, however, found this marriage particularly fascinating. According to Hollywood insiders, both partners were hiding their true identities. Their marriage was essentially a mutual cover story to protect both of their careers. Carson interviewed Lanchester several times after Laughton's passing. He found it remarkable how she honored her marriage while carefully avoiding any details that might contradict the official narrative. This wasn't a sham marriage that collapsed. They maintained their union for over 3 decades, building a genuine friendship and creative partnership. Carson saw it as a creative solution to an impossible problem. Finally, there is the biggest cover-up of all, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Their relationship is one of Hollywood's most celebrated love stories, a 26-year romance portrayed as the epitome of devotion. But according to Carson's private conversations, the host knew the actual nature of their relationship was far more complex. He believed their relationship was largely a mutually beneficial arrangement. It allowed both stars to maintain their careers while deflecting questions about their private lives. For Tracy, a Catholic who wouldn't divorce his wife, it provided an acceptable explanation for his separation. For Hepburn, it offered a reason why such a desirable woman remained unmarried, giving her the freedom to live as she pleased. Carson had observed that Hepburn's closest and longest relationships were primarily with women, including her long-term partner Laura Harding. What Carson found most remarkable was how the Hollywood publicity machine had transformed a close friendship into the century's greatest love story. It was, perhaps, the most successful piece of myth-making in Hollywood history. So what does this all mean? Was Hollywood built on a lie? Carson's final confession. When people watch these old films, they are looking for a mystery. They're wondering, did all this happen? Is it true? Are we missing a key detail? The thing is, we were missing the key detail. It wasn't just that these 9 stars were hiding their true identities. It was why they had to. We have to remember the era they lived in. This wasn't just about bad press. During the studio system, stars had morality clauses in their contracts. These were weapons. Being exposed didn't just mean you lost your career. It could mean public ruin and, in some places, even legal trouble. The Hollywood system demanded its stars be perfect fantasies, not real complex people. They were forced to choose their careers or their lives. But here's where the story takes a dark twist. What if the morality clause was just the cover story? One wild theory suggests the studios needed these secrets. They hunted for them. A star with a secret was a star they could control. Think about it. It becomes a blackmail engine. You own that person. You dictate their scripts, their dates, their entire life. The studio wasn't protecting its asset. It was leveraging its asset's biggest vulnerability. The lies weren't a bug. They were the feature. It gets weirder. Some researchers believe this went beyond the studios. That this system of arranged marriages and phantom families wasn't just about Hollywood. It was about controlling the public narrative. These stars were the most influential people on Earth. What if the lies weren't to protect their careers, but to protect powerful figures outside of Hollywood? What if the stars were forced into a conspiracy of silence that involved politicians, tycoons, and even organized crime? This is what Johnny Carson saw up close for 30 years. He wasn't just a host, he was a witness. Or maybe he was the confessor. He saw the psychological toll. He watched Raymond Burr invent a phantom family. He saw Rock Hudson, America's heartthrob, sweating under the lights, terrified of a simple question. Carson saw the real Hollywood, the one hidden behind the glamour. He saw the machinery that built the lies and the human beings who were crushed beneath it. These stars weren't just actors on screen. They were performing every single second of their public lives. Johnny's final confessions weren't just gossip. They were the last testament of the man who saw it all, the man who knew the unbelievable price of fame, and who knew exactly where all the bodies were buried. Did these stars make a deal to live a lie, or was it the only way to survive? Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.